The Bengals rookie class has arrived and they've gotten to work. Rookie minicamp is in the books.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. I'm your host, Jake Lisco. He's your host, James Rapine. Today, we review Friday's rookie minicamp. If you're new to the show, we're on YouTube. We're everywhere you get your podcasts. You can pick wherever you find your podcasts to listen or watch the Locked On Bengals podcast, and hit the subscribe button to become an everyday or make us your first listen. We appreciate all of you who already do those things. And James, thinking back to Friday, in the indoor practice facility, the Bengals rookies got to work for a brief workout as a little birthday gift to Zach Taylor, whose birthday was on Friday for rookie minicamp. And he got to see his new guys go through a little bit of a workout for the first time.
Yeah, which is always good. It's always beneficial. And the thing that I'm looking for in this, like, what's really like a 45-minute session, because they're stretching ahead of it. And so it's an hour, but doesn't really last an hour. Do the guys look the part? First glance, do they look the part? And last year, you certainly were looking at Myles Murphy and DJ Turner and all of those guys. And so this year, it's like, all right, Amarius Mims. Yeah, he's a giant. Check that box. Oh, yeah, he's moving well. Check that box. And then you just go down the list of these guys and we can discuss them. But that's really what it is for me. And you take different things out of it. I'm sure each media member, certainly the coaches and the staff, heck, Trey Brown, who, if you missed our interview with him, make sure you check it out. He didn't let me work out on Friday, unfortunately. I tried. I brought my cleats, but it didn't happen. But otherwise, I think that's the goal is, all right, does this guy look like we've been saying he is as a prospect, whether it's a McKinnley Jackson, whether it's Kris Jenkins, whether it's Amarius Mims, whether it's your guy, Matt Lee, you want to see that. And so for the most part, and we can go player by player if you want, but for the most part, these guys did check those boxes, which is good to see.
Yeah, we can talk about what we saw from them on the field in the brief workout, which really isn't much. As even Zach Taylor said, it's more of an opportunity for them to get used to the way their coaches, their positional coaches, are going to interact with them on the field, interact with them in the room, an opportunity for them to get comfortable with their rookie class teammates, so a way for them to get comfortable with the way the Bengals might run a practice before they're fully integrated with the team this week. We can go player by player. Amarius Mims, from what I saw, looks every bit the giant athlete that he tested as, that he looked like at Georgia. But the clips where he's lined up next to Matt Lee, who measured at the combine at 6'3", 300 pounds, who we're told played over 300 pounds at Miami, even though he was a little bit lighter at the East-West Shrine Bowl. He makes him look like an average Joe. He makes him look like a non-football player a little bit because he's just so big. I mean, he probably clears him by 5 inches is at least what it looks like. And he clears him by 40 pounds as well. And that's a noticeable difference between those two guys. And you're not going to see them lined up side by side very often because Matt Lee's probably going to work mostly at center and Mims is going to work at tackle. But that was striking. The juxtaposition of the somewhat smaller, average size, maybe slightly below average size Matt Lee, and the giant, great size, prototypical size Amarius Mims side by side.
And Mims moved really, really well. That's the other element. It's because, yeah, you're right. He passes the eye test, but you want to see how he's moving. Obviously, you expect Matt Lee to move well. Mims did. And I know that the hamstring at the combine was discussed. I asked him afterwards about that, and he's good to go. All systems go when it comes to Amarius Mims. So it was good to see him out there. Certainly checked the box of big giant man moves well. And so that's successful for the Bengals first round pick. And then Kris Jenkins, go ahead.
You get the eye test confirming what the what the math bomb RAS card says. Exactly what it said. Also good to see him working with Frank Pollock. They're working on a little bit of, how they're lining up, and you get to see some of that as well. And sorry, you wanted to talk about Kris Jenkins.
No doubt. I just figured we should go player by player. And Kris Jenkins is a guy that you're expecting him to play, be powerful, be explosive. And I saw that. And he certainly looked that way. The way he was moving around, the way he was going through these drills, similar to with Frank Pollock, working with Marion Hobby. And it was cool because you had eyes on the trenches, but then you also had Burton working out in the middle of the field and the receivers working out in the middle of the field. So I just kept going station by station, like, all right, I'm going to watch Mims and Lee. All right, I'm going to watch Burton. All right, do I have time for Jenkins and Jackson? And I think Jenkins certainly does pass that eye test as well. Obviously, he's so excited to be here from an on-field standpoint, the way he was moving. And I'm sure plenty of our listeners and viewers have seen video of him now. You can tell he checks the boxes that you're looking for from an athleticism standpoint.
Yeah, he looked like the smoothest mover going through some of the agility drills they were working with on the defensive line. And those clips are out there on Twitter. You might have seen them on Friday, like you said, James. But just staying on the defensive line for the moment, McKinnley Jackson also showing off that burst that exists in his game, and we'll see how that translates to the football field. And he obviously didn't test like an elite athlete or anything, and I'm not here to tell you that he is an elite athlete, but there is that burst to his game that shows up in his scouting reports, it shows up on film, and it's just a question of, can that translate into nose tackles kind of play for a guy in a nose tackle kind of body? He has that first step. And so can you translate that into sustained power, speed to power, pushing the pocket, holding up at the point of attack, and all those things that a nose tackle is asked to do? But it was good to see just that hint of burst and athleticism in his game as well, despite what his RAS card said and what his body type suggests will be his role in the NFL. He did have that little bit of burst going through the drills as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that stood out to me right away as someone with that size moving that well. And so you have two young guys that are athletic, that are obviously playing different spots, but in the same defensive tackle room, defensive line room. And hopefully those two can be pillars for this Bengals defensive front moving forward. That's what they need them to be. And hopefully they can. Hopefully this is just the start of that. But he's certainly look the part from an athleticism moving standpoint. And again, you're running on air. You're not going up against any offensive linemen or anything like that. So you should be able to look the part in a situation like this, in a workout like this. And he certainly checked that box.
Yeah, I mean, you're an NFL player. You were drafted for a reason. One guy who, again, I thought was pretty impressive with the way he moved. You started to hint at it. Jermaine Burton can talk about his day at practice. And I know you talked to him. You talked to Amarius Mims in the locker room. We can talk about the rest of these draft picks, any other standouts from practice or from in the locker room to continue the show coming up next.
Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. I've used eBay Motors for just regular maintenance on my Daewoo, and you can too. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
Let's talk Jermaine Burton. I thought he looked like, again, you would expect him to look, I guess, running on air, running routes on air, but the routes looked good. Looks like he can move. Obviously, the hands are something that we've heard others rave about that show up on his tape as well. Really good, sticky hands, some of the best hands in this class, maybe the best hands in this class, period, according to Steve Palazzolo, who told us about his thoughts on his number 4 receiver in the class a few weeks ago, if you want to go back and check that out. But what were your takeaways watching Burton in the middle of the field?
Well, yeah, he certainly looked the part, has the speed, the agility, has the brakes. There was a video I posted where it's a curl and he stops, turns, and has to just jump to get to this ball. And I don't know exactly who threw it. I don't know if it was Rocky or not, but Rocky Lombardi. But regardless, I can't remember. But good football name, by the way. Great football name. But he climbs the ladder, makes the play, and it's like, oh, okay. So that's how it is. And I think he used every catch I saw was a hands catch, which you'd expect. But I think his hands pretty sticky. And you're going to see that. There was another ball where he's running across the middle of the field, and he had to bend down for it. And it's still hands catch, didn't use his body at all, didn't let it get to his body. And so I do think from a catching the ball perspective, which makes sense. He didn't have a drop last year on a bunch of downfield targets. He checks that box as well. So moves well, check. Hops, check. Acceleration, deceleration, quickness, check. And hands, check.
An ability to go outside your frame, which is something that we talk about with receivers often, and the ability to make plays outside your frame. Nice to see that from Jermaine Burton early. Of course, we'll see him get some work with defenders at some point this summer. That was not the goal on Friday. Anything else from the field stand out before we transition to what was said in the locker room and some of the conversations you had?
Field wise, no, I don't think so. I think that's about it. Erick All didn't participate in any of the field drills. More on him coming up in a bit. Other than that, Tanner McLaughlin, didn't see much of him either as he makes his way back from that core muscle surgery. So we didn't really get to see the tight ends much. Obviously, we would be watching those as well. But other than that, no, I think that the main picks fared well. And then one quick note on Josh Newton. I thought he looked really good. And tell me he's a 5th round corner. He didn't look like a 5th round corner to me, and looked strong, was moving the way you would expect them to move, getting in and out of his stance and backpedaling and sprinting and catching. Nice hands by Josh Newton as well, which we'd expect, the ball skills, but certainly looked comfortable sprinting towards the ball, catching it away from his body, all of those things, which is ideal for a corner to have.
No big surprises. You would hope, I guess, not to have any big surprises when players are working on air, doing positional drills, just getting a easing into it kind of workout to get used to what things are going to be like. And it'll ramp up, of course, as the off-season program continues, and they will be integrated with the full team, like I said, this week. But also had an opportunity to talk to some of these players in the locker room, James. And what stood out to you the most there? Where do you want to start with the conversations you have with the Bengals rookies?
Well, let's start with the biggest man of them all, Amarius Mims, and asked him what it's been like since draft night. Or he was asked that. I didn't ask him that, but what it's been like. And he said he's just been in the playbook. Got the iPad on Friday after the draft, has been in the playbook. His biggest takeaway, there's a lot. There's a lot in the playbook. Yeah. And so it's good that he is getting used to it. The other thing that stood out, I'm sure a lot of people saw on Thursday when Mims met Burrow for the first time. It was like an 8-second clip that the Bengals posted on social. I asked him about it. He was like, yeah, that was a great 8 seconds. That was a great 8 seconds. And he's really excited to get to work on Monday with Burrow and the rest of the veterans for sure.
Did you see the picture or video, I guess, Dan Orlovsky posted with a 2008 Texans playbook? And he shows it from the front. And he's like, okay, here's what rookies get when they show up. And then he turns it to the side, and it's just like encyclopedia, dictionary, like thousands of pages thick. And they put it on an iPad now, but when Amarius Mims says there's a lot, that's immediately where my mind went, was to the thing that Dan Orlovsky shared last week. And it also takes me back to the conversation we had with Brandon Thorne. So speaking of offensive line, a great episode we had with Brandon Thorne last week, breaking down the Bengals' new offensive lineman and their offensive line on the whole. One of the things that we talked with Brandon about was, where does the technique work come from? And we saw some of that with Frank Pollock working with Amarius Mims' stance on the left side, in particular on one rep. At least that was a clip shared on Twitter. But in addition to that, that kind of resonates with the idea that the coaches have to get this playbook installed. You got to get through this massive playbook with all of these different things in it. And it's hard to do that and also have time to work on technique, especially with the current very regulated practice schedules that they've got. So when you talk about what Amarius Mims had to say to you, those are the things that immediately come to mind for me.
Yeah, I totally get it. I mean, the playbook's as big as him. And so he's got a lot of learning, lot of learning to do, and all of these rookies do. And that's why I really do. I think that's why Zach Taylor has scaled this back. It's about getting them comfortable, getting them through a workout in Bengals jersey so they get that out of the way. And then on Monday, which is probably today, depending on when you're listening and watching, that's when they can get to work and really dive in. And I'm excited because, well, it's open to the media on Tuesday. Workouts are, so we'll get to see Amarius Mims blocking for Joe Burrow, so to speak, and in the same practice field as Joe Burrow. So, yeah, did you notice how big Mims was compared to Burrow, who's not a small guy by any stretch?
I thought I did, but I thought that Burrow actually like kind of held his own beside Amarius Mims a little
You know
bit.
why?
Yeah.
Because he's big.
He's bigger. Yeah.
He's bigger. He's 6'4". Like he's not a small guy. You know?
What do you think Joe weighs right now? Like 220, 230?
Not 230.
215?
Maybe 220. He's 220 for Joe is I'm not sure he's ever played at 220. So
Well, he's not at a playing weight right now. We're early off season.
But that's what I'm saying is like it's always less than that. So I'm sure he's put on a few pounds, but 230 would be insane for Joe, especially with the way he was moving.
That'd be really big. But he looks bigger. I mean, we've said this every year.
No, anyway. I think 220. 220 is probably right.
Yeah. What's he usually play at? Like 210, 215?
Probably something in that range, right? Like in that
realm. It varies over the course of the year. Obviously,
for
nobody's weight is constant.
Yeah, because you lose muscle during the season. You're not lifting as heavy. You're just kind of maintaining, and so you get a little puffier. But you also may lose weight because you're losing muscle and adding a little layer there. So yeah, that might be the case.
Anyway, yes, I did see that clip to answer that question. Also, talk to Jermaine, Burton, to Erick All in the locker room. We'll finish the conversation today with those locker room takeaways coming up next.
Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win for you. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. And thanks to FanDuel, thanks to FanDuel, I took the Mavericks last week in game 2. Thank you, FanDuel. You can get in on all the action right now, and new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. So maybe you're looking at NBA parlays. Maybe you're looking at NHL money lines. Maybe you just think that the Cincinnati Reds are going to continue to rebound after dropping 8 straight to start the month of May. Well, FanDuel is the place you need to go to, where you'll get $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Jake, let's get to Jermaine Burton, who honestly, I like him. I like his personality. I know it's all the character stuff, and we'll see, right? And it's like, man, no one at Georgia, like you read up and like no one at Georgia is endorsing this guy. No one at Alabama is endorsing this guy. Just talking to him, and I've talked to him twice now. I don't know what the issue is based on how I've interacted with him. So far, so good there. I mean, he's been pleasant to talk to, and in first meeting, it wasn't even an interview. It was just chatting and discussing stuff, and he talked and sat down with the writers, and then on Friday was able to chat with him for about 6 minutes and interview him, ask him how he fit wide receiver wise, who he's heard from. He has heard from, by the way, a Bengals leader. He's been the leader in the Bengals wide receiver room, by the way, just establishing that real quick. Jamar Chase did reach out. And so that's good. Charlie Jones reached out as well. And so I do think Burton, who praised the versatility of the wide receiver room, obviously they're expecting him to be a piece of that, a key piece of that. Thinks he's going to fit really, really well and is excited to work with Troy Walters.
Did he talk at all about how he sees the fit or what he's expecting to be doing?
Not specific as in like slot outside or anything like that. He didn't get into specifics, but he did think and does think that he fits really well. And I think that makes a ton of sense. And he did mention that Jamar said he's a big fan of his game when he texted him. And Burton was like, well, yeah, I'm a big fan of your game as well. So that's pretty funny. Now, those are the two most, at least for my money, most versatile pieces on the team in that wide receiver room. So those two guys are going to be alternating and interchangeable. I think that's the Bengals' goal long term. That might not be the exact scenario that plays out as while he's a rookie, but I think by 2025 for sure, those guys are just going to be moving all around.
Yeah, that is an ideal outcome, I think, is to have the flexible pieces that can align in a number of different places. And that is what Jermaine Burton contends with. You talk about the playbook for Amarius Mims. You also talk about it for Jermaine Burton, who has all the physical traits that you need, but now needs to figure out where he should be breaking on different option routes. And he's going to get Joe Burrow pulling him aside over the next few weeks, talking to him like he talked to Mike Gesicki and talked to Tanner Hudson about how he wants him to come out of specific breaks and how he wants him to work certain releases. You're going to get a lot of that over the next few weeks. So how you absorb that information and it translates to playing on the field and becoming consistent with playing with the kind of technique that the Bengals coaching staff is looking for, playing within the context of the offense and making the kind of decisions, seeing the field the way that Joe sees the field, that's going to lead to success for Jermaine Burton wherever he lines up, and is a huge part of the reason that Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow have the kind of success that they have together, is the way that they see the field so frequently on the same page. And that is a huge part of their consistent connection. I assume no step stool to talk to Jermaine Burton. Did they have a little? They got to construct, I guess, an elevated box around Amarius Mims' locker room for everybody, right? I mean, it's not.
He sat there.
That makes it.
Yeah. It's not just me. What? Of course, it's not just me. What's wrong with you?
I'm just making jokes.
Oh, you're just over 6 foot tall and you weigh 120. Yeah, eat more. You need to get on that Burrow diet.
120.
Come on.
What?
120.
You also talked
in the Canadian wind.
Also talked to Erick All, James, about his injuries, what he's working back from. What were the big takeaways there from the conversation with the Bengals rookie tight end?
That the back injury, at least to him, and he didn't use this word, but I will, has been overblown by everyone. And he was never really concerned about the back from the moment he had the surgery, felt so much better. And he said the ACL rehab has been much more challenging than the back was. And we see ACLs all the time and guys come back from ACL. So I think we're kind of numb to it. And it is a really tough thing to come back from. But you just kind of expect it because these guys deal with ACLs. Almost every player deals with one at some point in their career, it feels like. Not everyone, but a lot of them. And this back thing, where especially like in the Beast, it was that Dane wrote that it was like potentially life-changing. And I guess Eric was reflective on a tweet that he sent out. And he called it that, a life-changing injury. And so it was life-changing, but I think it was life-changing for the better because he was pain-free afterwards, is fully confident in his back, didn't hesitate to say that. So I think it's all about getting the knee right and ready to go. The good news is, even though he didn't participate on Friday, he was like, oh yeah, I think I'm going to be ready for the regular season. And his goal is training camp. And it seems like everyone within the Bengals thinks that training camp is realistic. So don't look now, but Erick All, he may be in the mix, certainly, at tight end right away. I know some have thought, and I thought initially, PUP list. He's not thinking PUP list, that's for sure. And I don't think the Bengals are either.
He might start there at the beginning of training camp, but it would be...
Yeah, training camp. But I mean season. Like, I think some people are like,
right.
they drafted Tanner McLaughlin. He's going to be on the PUP list for 6 weeks. I don't think that's the case.
I still don't think you rule it out, but ideally he gets back for part of training camp and gets to work part of training camp, because as a rookie, I can't imagine a more important time to work in training camp, to actually physically go through that install, go through playing at a high speed. And maybe he's able to do some walkthrough stuff, although I don't even think that he can unless he's off the pup list. So you get the mental reps, but getting the physical reps as a rookie to get some exposure to NFL speed, which, they're different speeds you hear about in the NFL. You got your practice speed, your preseason speed, your regular season speed, your playoff speed. And all of those, I assume, are going to be faster than college game speed at some point. And so getting him some training camp exposure, getting through a few weeks of that kind of practice environment would be a huge deal for his development as a rookie and his ability to see the field early in his rookie season, because otherwise you're trying to catch up and get a lot of work in regular season practices, which are very different, of course, from preseason practices. Training camp practices, a lot less intensive and more game plan specific. The install portion is much smaller. You have your entire preseason install and then your week to week install, much smaller game to game specific stuff. So getting Erick All back for the preseason, getting him back to work in training camp would be a huge boost to his ability to see the field much his rookie season, and would give the Bengals a better idea of where that ACL is at and whether he's been affected negatively in the ACL recovery. Because yeah, you're right. Players go through ACL injuries and recoveries all the time. It's still a grueling process to get back from an ACL. So even though we're used to it and we see it all the time, that doesn't mean it's easy, to your point. But in addition to that, you never know how players are going to come back from it, especially at positions where change of direction, burst are very important. You saw that with his former teammate Blake Corum at Michigan. You don't always come back from it playing at the same level you did before, or sometimes it just takes a couple of years. And so what level of performance he's at and how confident he is in that knee coming back from that initially, getting more information will help the Bengals to assess where they're at with that piece going forward.
No doubt. And to me, what today or what Friday meant for Erick All is, don't rule out the idea that he's going to contribute as a rookie. That's it. Because you're right. We don't know, but he seems confident. And I certainly think he is excited, by the way, just the other note, to just make the trek down south a little bit from Fairfield to downtown Cincinnati and be a Bengal. So we'll see, but I'm excited to see him out there. I know James Casey is too. James Casey the Bengals tight ends coach, spent multiple minutes talking with Erick before the workout began, and was excited. I posted a quick clip of that on Twitter as well.
Got to get those mental reps in and prepare to get those mental reps in over the next few weeks. And I assume that's part of what that conversation is about. Any other notes before we get out of here, James, from Rookie Minicamp? That's it.
No, That's it. Bengals back at it again this week, and we're going to have you covered here, of course. But as we mentioned, don't miss, if you did miss Trey Brown, if you missed Brandon Thorne, if you missed Mike Potts on all these draft picks over the past couple of weeks, we've had a lot of great guests right here on Locked On Bengals. Make sure you check out all of the episodes if you've missed them.
Go back to the Trevor Sikkema episode. He recently posted a piece on PFF where he called Amarius Mims the best first-round draft pick in the 2024 draft. He really liked that pick. And Steve Palazzolo, like I said earlier that week, the week after the draft, talking about how Jermaine Burton was his fourth best wide receiver in the draft. Really big fans of the Bengals draft over at Pro Football Focus. So, yeah, some good stuff to catch up on if you're looking for that. Otherwise, we'll be right back here with more Bengals analysis for you, and we'll have you covered, of course, for those open practices in the offseason program as well over the next few weeks. Until next time, that's going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. Thanks for listening. Hoo day, and have a good one.